Hey guys, Rob here. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is dealing with bad clients, what you do, how to spot them, and all that good stuff. And this has actually come from a Reddit link where somebody has actually sent me a thread where they're talking about like they're dealing with a bad client and they don't know what to do. So I'm going to walk through that and talk about a little bit what I think about it as well. So let's get going. This thread is called "My Client Just Called Me a Scammer. What do I do?" Now, so this past client of mine works in the e-commerce industry selling latex pillows. However, he doesn't sell a variety of products, only this one product. Make sense? So when we first began talking, I explained to him that SEO is a long process and could take 6 months to really see results come in, especially when competing in a competitive industry with larger companies. For those of you who don't know who are watching this video, SEO is search engine optimization, and search engine optimization is essentially what you do to a website and the background stuff you can do to a website, which makes it appear on like the high end of the Google search results. So for instance, if I was going to type in here, this guy's product, latex pillows, and I don't see his website, it's probably because his SEO isn't very good. However, if I typed in latex pillows and it actually came up at the top there, that means his SEO is good. So this guy is selling a service which is helping people increase their SEO and increase their visibility online. Now, at this time, he had agreed with me and he said he was ready to get started, which I figured, yeah, let's do this. Almost immediately, get ready for it, he began micromanaging me, trying to intervene with my process, SEO at every turn by saying things wouldn't work or saying things how he doesn't believe that's a good idea. So straight away, this is a red flag from the client. This guy's went and hired an expert, which is this post starter here. And this expert is trying to do his job, and instantly this guy is getting in the way and micromanaging him. It's a massive red flag immediately. What you should be doing now is setting again the expectations with the client and saying, look, I haven't really started the work yet. You're not an expert at this. You've hired me as an expert. Here's what we're going to do. And he needs to get that buy-in from the client again, which is tough, right? So now many people would be annoyed by seeing this, as he already knew what works and what he wouldn't, I can't read, and what didn't he wouldn't be hiring me. But in most cases, I just see this as a client involved with the business and just shrug it off and try to work with them as much as possible, right? So he's ignoring the first red flag. This is a big mistake. And it's not this guy's fault. Sometimes in business, you'll come across shady people who, just aren't that great, right? It's never personally happened to me where I've had a bad client, but I've heard from, my friends who are in business as well, where they've had bad clients and they've been like, oh my God, how do I handle this situation? Where it's just kind of snowballed. Then one day I received a text saying, hey Justin, I cancelled all other forms of marketing and we'll be relying solely on SEO right now. This took me as a complete shock, and I informed him that probably this isn't the best idea. That's a good approach, as the best marketing strategies don't rely on just one channel, but rather rely on multiple feeding off each other. And if he was looking for money immediately, SEO wasn't going to do the trick. So far, this guy who's made this post is being upfront and honest with his client. He sounds like a really honest guy. He's telling him he's setting his expectations again, right? So he says, this fell on deaf ears, classic, and no more than a week later, he began becoming more impatient, saying things like, hey, sales are down this month, or hey, I think we need to pivot our SEO strategy. And while these things may not sound crazy, it had only been 1 month at this time, and I'd just laid out the foundation and redone his website to fit the strategy I had laid out, so essentially we never got to try it out. Okay, so basically, if you're gonna implement an SEO strategy into your website or something like that, it takes time for Google to pick it up, to understand hey, this website's made changes. I'm going to continually measure the SEO of these other websites, and I'm gonna reorder them, and it takes a while to actually see results from this. So this guy his client here is actually cancelled. He's cancelled his other marketing strategies. even though this even though this poster here has said to him completely clear, completely transparently, look, it's going to take a while. He's cancelled his other marketing strategies and then doubled down on the pressure of this poor service provider here. And now, even though he's been upfront and honest with him again, he's still saying things like, hey, I need to pivot. Hey, we need to pivot our SEO strategy. First of all, this client isn't the expert in this realm. Otherwise, he would have already done it himself. He would have already made these things himself and, made the adjustments himself, but he hasn't. He's still stuck, right? So why is he even getting involved? And hey, sales are down this month. Yeah, that's because you've just cancelled all your other marketing strategies, you donut. So fast forward to the very next month and I get another message saying, hey Justin, I spoke with another marketing expert and they said it would be a dumb idea to continue with SEO services as they don't belong on an e-commerce store. You may not have known that, but maybe now you won't scam people in the future. Wow. Wow. Can't lie, this hurt a lot as I pride myself on providing quality SEO services to the businesses I worked with, and I've worked and currently work with both service businesses and e-commerce stores in the past that have been great results. I ended up just replying with no problem, best of luck to you. Am I wrong here? I told him everything I could do and I didn't even have a chance to see my plan come to the life before it was dumped. Okay, so there was absolute red flags with this client here. Now, by the time he's already signed him up, the problem is it's a bit too late to pick up on these red flags unless you just got rid of him straight away, right? I guarantee in the sales process, this client was showing red flags as well. And I think if you're at the beginning of entrepreneurship or, you're kind of in a situation where, you're desperate to get the next client in, I think it's easy to pick the low-hanging fruit clients, right? And to actually pick up someone who maybe isn't the best fit for your service, who maybe is a little bit demanding, but you kind of overlook that because you need to get the money in. Well, the problem with this is that it can actually backfire in your face, and it has done for this person here. Which is why I always say to people, you need to be in business. It's not just all about data. It's not all about analytics. You need a good understanding of people being social. I've been ripped off once before. Long story, I'll tell that in a different video. But basically, you need a good understanding of people and understanding of narcissists as well. You need a good understanding of people who are a bit Machiavellian, right? A bit sneaky, because you want to make sure that either you're not hiring them as a service provider or you aren't getting them as a client, because both ways can be absolutely destructive. From what it sounds like here, this guy is a classic impatient, this person who he's hired, this guy is like a classic impatient narcissist, right? Because he's just so sold on what he thinks he knows, even though he spent money hiring an expert, that he's went so far as to make all these random changes in his business which probably weren't agreed on. Well, obviously weren't agreed on because he's cancelled all other forms of marketing. And then after a month, even though this service provider has been completely upfront and honest with him, saying that this is a 6-month strategy, are you okay with this? He still went and said, you may not have known this service would never have worked but maybe now you won't scam people in the future. And he's replied with no problem, best of luck to you. Personally, I wouldn't have even been replying, to be honest with you, because you don't want to be replying to these types of people. They're a waste of time. And hopefully he's learned a big lesson here, but let's look at some of the comments. Clients who are that much work are never worth it. I agree. They nickel and dime you to the death, and you spend 80% of your time working on this client who was never going to pay you more than the bare scraping minimum. The last time I made this mistake of bringing a client of that caliber on board, I just refunded them their whole first month's deposit and told them good luck when I realized that they were going to be one of those clients. How did they end up taking that? It doesn't matter. You have to, you have your life to live. You can't make everyone happy, and many people will see you only as a tool, like this guy. You could do the technical things he thought he wanted, and he didn't care about your experience or anything else you brought to the table. This is the way. Yeah, so that's true. Some people believe, some people do it where they're just ticking boxes. I remember when I was in the market research phase of a business idea, this was years ago now, but I was looking at helping occupational psychologists essentially get more clients in their niche, right? I was helping them. That's what I was looking to do. And so I actually took a bunch of occupational psychologists out to coffee. I actually called a bunch of them as well, set up meetings with them to truly understand what their problem was and what they were facing. Anyway, what they were actually facing wasn't getting clients at all. They were in high demand. It was the fact that they used to go to organizations to try and improve the organization. So their job role was basically to help increase performance, help reduce staff, calling in sick and all this stuff, and look at like the psychology of the environment. That's their basic job. But they said that their biggest problem is, and this was from a bunch of them, that they used to turn up to these organizations and the boss or the executive or the CEO didn't actually really want to take any of their advice. They actually just wanted to tick a box to look like they were taking their advice and continue doing what they were doing. So their biggest problem was actually getting the boss who'd hired them to actually take their advice, which is absolutely insane when you think about it. But just know that there are people actually out there like this who are going to hire you for your expertise, but don't actually want your expertise. They think they already know it all. They're already sold on their own ideas, and there's really not much you can do with it, right? You can tell them absolutely straight, like, look, if you thought you knew what you were doing, and what you thought was correct, you would have already the result here, but you don't, because you don't know what you're doing, hence why you've hired me. Unless you're that direct with them, and sometimes it does take that personality, from what I've seen, to push through these things. There's not really an awful lot that you can do here, because they're just gonna, be a bit of a nightmare through and through to the end. So let's just read some other comments here. What do you do? You move on. Unfortunately, this happens in this sort of business. You have to learn to just notice the red flags. It sounds like he is a scammer with his shitty e-commerce products. He is likely dropshipping from China. He is projecting onto you. He is failing and he wants you to blah, blah, blah. Screw this guy. He may have somehow stumbled into a way of... Yeah, so they're all pretty much saying exactly the same things of what I've said. There's an amazing book which talks about the psychology of people and just how destructive it can be to people when you're actually, maybe trying to seek out clients or seek out a service provider. And this book is called... The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, and he talks about situations in history where the person's been a complete narcissist and how they've ultimately destroyed another person, or there's situations in history where and the person's been mad sneaky, mad Machiavellian, or they've been a bit of a psycho, and they've ended up just not being good for the people around them, and they've dragged them down as well while completely focusing on themselves, which is kind of what's happened here. So the big takeaways from this is always, 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 more importantly than vetting the person's service, vet the person as an individual. Are they a helpful individual? Are they, a nice person? Will they actually do anything they say, they're going to do for you? Are they going to actually help you? And the same thing for looking at clients as well. Do they actually want help, right? Are they actually going to take your advice? Are they being demanding already and you've not even signed them on as a client, right? And if they are, then next them. Remember what Grant Cardone says? He said next is a strategy, and because every time you next someone, you get closer to the actual person who you're going to sign as a client. So remember, next is a strategy. I hope that helps, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Have a great one.